Up until now, we've been talking about the pen, mouse, and tools that come on the tablet themselves. Functions, for example, express keys, touch strips, pop-up menu. But there are a couple of other input options available to you, namely the digital airbrush and also the 6D Art Pen, as you can see right within our Tools section of the Wacom tablet properties. Now, as individual tools, they can also be assigned application-specific settings. So what we're going to do is take a look at how we can go ahead and set up these pens in Photoshop to get some really stylized looks. Under Application, let's go ahead and add Photoshop as an application we'd like to assign custom settings. So I'm going to click on the plus sign to the right of the application area. Again, that's going to show me a list of the currently open applications. So I will select Photoshop and click OK. And there it is available to us. Now, in the lower portion of the panel, I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time here. These are the same areas that we covered when we talked about the grip pen. But again, as an individual tool, you can adjust the tilt sensitivity, the tip feel, double-click distance, and finally, on the top of the airbrush itself, there is a button that can be assigned various functions, such as a series of clicks, keystrokes, modifiers, etc. If I go over here to Art Pen, again, we're going to see the very same types of functions. Now, because I am using the Cintiq 12WX, I have this calibration option on both the Art Pen and the airbrush. If I were using the Intuos 3 6x11 tablet, for example, calibration would be replaced with mapping, which we've covered when we talked about display toggle. So let's go out of the Wacom tablet properties and jump over to Photoshop and show you how to set these up. I'm going to minimize the Wacom tablet properties, going over to Photoshop, and I'm going to bring open a blank document that I've already created. Now in this area, what we're going to do is select our paintbrush. We're going to go up to the Brushes panel, and we're going to take a look at some options for us. In this case, what we can do with this airbrush is use the pen tip, as we did with the grip pen, to adjust various dynamics of our brushes using pen pressure. But the unique thing about the airbrush is that it has a scrolling stylus wheel along the top. What you can do with this is enable you to adjust the opacity, for example with the stylus wheel, while simultaneously again adjusting pressure using the pen tip. So let's go ahead and set that up. Under Shape Dynamics, I'm going to make sure that I've got Control set for pen pressure. Under Other Dynamics, I'm going to change Control not to pen pressure, but rather stylus wheel. And you'll notice in the brush preview window that it's going to vary from thin to thick, but also in opacity. Again, that's because the opacity and flow jitter are being changed to stylus wheel. Now, let's minimize that brushes panel and come over here, and I'm going to have to just kind of illustrate this for you, but with the stylus wheel on the airbrush pushed all the way forward, as I start to paint on my canvas, nothing happens. However, when I gradually pull the stylus wheel back, what's happening is I'm adjusting the opacity dynamically. Again, this is a really unique way of working. If anybody has any experience with a traditional airbrush, this digital airbrush is going to give you a very unique tactile feel of that traditional airbrush. It's a definite must to check out. Moving over to the 6D Art Pen, what we're going to do is take a look at an option to set that up. I'm going to undo this by clicking one of the buttons on the side of my tablet that I've set to undo my last brush stroke. And I'm once again going to go back to the Brushes panel. Now, incidentally, as I've done this, I've picked up the 6D Art Pen and I've opened up the Brushes panel, and you'll notice, because I still have the same brush setting, Control has these little exclamation points next to them. If I hover my cursor over that for a second, you'll see a message that says Control by thumb wheel is not available if you're not using a digital airbrush. So what we need to do is change the control settings for this particular pen. Back in the drop-down menu, we look at, well, we're looking for rotation, because the unique thing about this pen is that it allows you to accept not only pressure, but also rotation. Well, rotation isn't going to affect what the brush tip is going to look like in this case. So what we're going to do is set these for pen pressure, And now we're going to go over to Shape once more, go down here to Angle Jitter, and set Control for Rotation. Now, incidentally, you didn't see any difference right here in the brush preview window. So what we need to do is actually change the shape of the brush itself. So we're going to go to Brush Tip Shape, and now we're going to adjust the angle of the brush and also that diameter. And then we're also going to select Hardness and drag this up a little bit more so it looks more apparent. So imagine, if you will, in this brush preview window, what we're doing is we're taking our brush and we're literally kind of flipping it over. So let's go ahead and do that. I'm going to minimize the brushes panel, and holding my pen to the tablet, I'm going to gradually rotate it in various axes, and that's going to change the width of that brush. So let me try this once more. If I paint from left to right, I get a pretty wide stroke. If I paint up and down, I get a slightly different shape stroke. If I paint directly in line with that 45-degree brush, you'll see that it paints in a 45-degree. But what this rotation is enabling me to do is vary the rotation of the pen based on the physical rotation, or excuse me, I can change the rotation or angle of the stroke based on the angle or rotation, physical rotation of the pen on the tablet. So 2 accessories available to you, again, the digital airbrush and the 6D art pen. You can check them out at Wacom.com, and you can also look forward to a couple of tips from Colin as he shows you how to use them in Photoshop. Thanks again for joining me.